Most people don't know what's holding them back, but you do because you listen to me, Sam, your self-care guru and journal junkie. Welcome to Journal Entries, your safe place where you can tune in weekly to get tips, tricks, and journal prompts to uncover your feelings, gain clarity, and make your move. On today's episode, I'm interviewing a former guest, Kelsey. We dig into wellness, but not your typical wellness tips. She shares simple mindset hacks and how she uses her notes app to start her fitness routine, to stay on track, and to get back on track with zero guilt. Enjoy. Welcome to today's journal entry. Today, once again, we have a special guest, and you actually know her. It's Kelsey from Healthy 9 Club, the mentor for Enneagram 9s.
Yes.
Kelsey has so many sides to her, and one side that you guys know that I love is health and fitness, and she has so much experience. And so today we're going to dig into health and fitness and how to prioritize yourself and how it's so easy to start and then easy to fall off and all of the things. And especially, I feel like this might be bad to say, but I feel like it's harder for moms. Do you feel like that's true?
It is. I think it's true. I do.
Yeah. So yeah, can you want to start off by telling us a little bit about your experience and how you help women with this?
Yeah, definitely. So currently I'm doing Enneagram 9 mentoring, but a huge piece of that, as we're trying to move towards good mental health, I always tell my community, really the foundation for that is taking care of your physical health, making sure you're eating things that, are actually doing good things for your body, making sure you're getting enough sleep as much as we can when we're parents. And so my experience is actually in the health and wellness field. My Bachelor of Science was in health and wellness. So it was a lot of nutrition courses, a lot of fitness courses. And then I ended up taking a lot of alternative medicine courses, which I thought was really fun and interesting too. And then from there, I was a group fitness instructor for years and a health coach for 2 years. So very much a big foundational piece of what I still do today, even though, it's not my title anymore.
Yeah. And I feel like kind of like we talked about in our last episode of Enneagram 9s, we often feel anxious and nervous to have tough conversations and to be pleasing everyone all the time, that it disrupts our own self. And I do feel like I always say control the controllable, and I think that one of the things we can control is how we feel on the outside, which will help with how we feel on the inside in doing everything, every other part of life.
Yeah, I feel like it's like those two things communicate with each other. It really goes both ways. The way that you feel on the inside impacts the way you show up in the world, and then vice versa. So I think it's important to be, as well as you can, showing up the way that you can in just treating yourself with kindness and respect.
So I feel like another popular feeling, if you will, is I guess I just see a lot of moms say that they wish that they had the time or they do spend the time working out, but they feel bad and guilty that, it might be taking away from their kids. So what would you say to like that person or that mom that might be feeling that guilt, even though she's trying to better herself?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would just say that I've been there and sometimes I'm still there. So I think that that's just very normal. I think it's normal to want to give everything you have to your kids because you care so much, right? We care so much. And that is not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. But I will say, number one, I think it's really helpful. And this is what kind of flipped the switch for me in terms of mindset, was physically writing down, or like even in the notes section of your phone, what the outcome is if you choose to, let's say, I'll use myself as an example. I weightlift 3 days a week, non-negotiable, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2 p.m. I'm in my basement lifting heavy things. It's just like, it takes a lot for me to not do that. Like my kids know that is that is a firm line. So so I think it was really helpful for me, first of all, to write down, well, what could I gain from that? Okay, I could gain maybe a longer lifespan. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to live to be 95 and meet my great grandkids. Well, maybe I'm going to be able to carry my son's car seat and like not be exhausted, right? Like after one outing. Maybe I would have more energy outside of those workouts to actually do fun things with my kids. Maybe I would feel more confident in other areas of my life if I showed up, 30 minutes, 3 days a week to do that little thing for myself. So it helped me first to write that stuff out and actually visually see it in words, the ways that I could benefit. But I'm a people pleaser. So let me tell you my hack. I also had to make a second list, which is how are other people going to benefit from me doing this?
Ooh, I like that.
I mean, you got to know yourself, right? If you're a people pleaser, that's not just going to magically go away. But I think you need to realize that when you choose to take care of yourself, you are impacting other people. Number one, I have 3 kids. I'm setting an example for them that you need to prioritize this or it won't happen. Number 2, my kids benefit from me having some endorphins. Moms, we get grumpy. It's just, it happens. Like kids are chaotic. Life is chaotic. It's busy. It is way too easy for us to just let everyone else take over and to grow resentful of our lives. Right. But when you choose to carve out time for yourself, you are doing a huge favor to your whole family too, because you're taking away that resentment piece. At least for me, that was my experience. Let's see, like what else? My husband benefits from me getting exercise and not feeling grumpy. Like we all benefit from those endorphins, right? So I think it really helps to know if you are a people pleaser, you might not want to focus on how you're going to benefit. That might not be enough for you. You might need to focus on how other people around you are going to benefit from you, instilling this habit. So for me, a really big piece of it is, yeah, I do want to set a good example for my kids. And that's some days that's a bigger reason for me than, oh, I want to have muscles. Like that's just not a good enough motivator.
Right. Yeah.
Not,
Especially when you're exhausted.
Yeah. But then to see over time, like I've been doing that for a year. I lift weights and I walk. That's my exercise. That's it. That's all I have time for. But then to see over a year how many other like positive changes have occurred. So, it's really cool to see kind of down the line when you've stuck with it for a little while. That your daughter, my daughter's 7, and that she's like, she wants to do yoga videos because she like wants to be like mommy and things like that.
What I love about what you just said is that it's nothing insane. It's not like you're lifting and then going for a run and then the other days is CrossFit or something, like it seems so doable when you say it like that.
Yes. And I think that's one of the big tips that I wanted to say today too. Because the community I run on Instagram, we really struggle with getting overwhelmed. We are easily overwhelmed people. So if I were to say like, who wants to do this fitness plan with me? It's like an hour a day, 7 days a week. Immediately I feel overwhelmed. That's just me personally. And so I think it is helpful, especially as moms, when you feel like the chunks of time you have are so small, that to recognize that little things really do count. Little things over time, little choices over time. It's so much better for you to show up and do yoga for 5 minutes a day than it is to show up and do yoga for an hour once a week. Your body really likes that, like those little pockets of consistency. So you need to just recognize what's doable for you. And when you're setting a new goal, you need to be able to think to yourself, yeah, that's doable. These shouldn't be lofty goals. They should be doable. And that's going to help you just be able to stick with it, not feel resentful of, whatever it is you're doing. If it's 2 hours in the gym or,
Right.
you know,
I don't know if you've seen this reel going like viral on Instagram right now, but it's the audio is from The Notebook. And I'm like forgetting the characters' names, but the main guy is
yeah.
like, "What do you want?"
Oh,
And
yeah,
she's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"I don't know." And he's like, "What do you want?" And she's like, "It's not that simple." And
Yes.
it's funny, like it's moms. What most people are doing with audio is it's a mom. And then on one side, she's looking at like when you finally get alone time or when you finally get some peace from your kids. And one option is alone
Yeah.
time and the other option is something else, like
Yeah,
working
like
out or something. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and
But I'm like,
that's so normal. Like that's
yeah.
so normal,
Yeah. But it's funny because when I see that, most of the workouts I do are 30 minutes to like nothing
Mm,
crazy. And so I'm like, well, you could
yeah.
do both. Like I feel like maybe the nap, which
Yeah.
I'm guilty of napping very frequently, maybe that nap isn't 2 hours. Maybe it is 20 minutes. And then you get
Yeah.
in a 20-minute workout. It doesn't have to
Hmm.
be so extreme on either end.
Yeah, and that's really that all or nothing mentality that can
Hmm.
really hold us back. If we're thinking like, well, I can either rest or I can be fit. I can't have both. It's like
Yeah.
that's very all or nothing. What if from 2 to 2:30 p.m. one day you did a workout and then the next day you napped? Like we just have to get away from this all or nothing mentality because it causes us to go like all in on something and go way too hard and burn
Hmm.
out,
Yeah.
and no one, that's not sustainable for anyone.
Hmm. I feel like we're on the same wavelength because then I was just thinking of like, I'm this way for sure. And I feel like a lot of other women are too, where
Mhm.
we're like, okay, we are going to do it, even if it is just 30 minutes every day. But then, especially as the holidays come around or just
Yeah,
busyness or mom life, it's so easy to fall off track. And then there's
for
the
sure.
difficulty of like getting back on track or the guilt of like starting over. So
Yes.
how would you help someone that like can start, but it's just we just keep
Yeah.
falling off?
Yeah, it's the maintaining. Okay,
Yeah.
so I just posted about this. I want to say it was Friday. I posted about it in my stories. I said, am I the one who does this? And I know I'm not. I know
Yeah.
I'm not. But I have a tendency to like, let's say I started a new habit. So I'll use myself as an example because I'm always going to be the one to throw myself under the bus because I promise I'm just also a normal person doing this too. Um, I had started a habit about 3 weeks ago. I was like, I'm going to walk my dog every day after dinner. That's just a good little, like, that's my alone time. I'm going to get outside. My dog's going to get a walk. So that's like a win-win. And I did it for about 2 weeks straight. And then one night, I was like, I'm just really wiped. Like, I think I had lifted weights that day, and I was just like, I'm crashing hard, and I just want to go to bed at like 7. And so I chose not to that night. Can I tell you a secret? I haven't done it once since then. So, but what I learned from that, and I don't feel guilty about it because this is human nature. What I learned is that you do not succeed by showing up perfectly all the time. That's not success. That's not what it looks like. You succeed by forgiving yourself quickly and resetting. Start over. I don't care how many times you have to start over. That's not what failure is. Failure is not, falling off the wagon and then starting again. Failure is not starting again. If you allow your mindset to say, okay, well, I worked out, I was really good. I'm using quote fingers because I hate that phrase. I was really good for a month. You're good all the time. You're human. Okay. And then I missed a couple days. Let's say I had family in town. I do this too. I didn't work out for a couple days because I had family in town. And then I just had trouble getting back into it. The reason you probably had trouble getting back into it was because you felt guilty for missing a couple days. Guilt does not motivate you. guilt is not a positive emotion to build a positive life off of. But I can tell you this, I had family in town last week, 2 weekends ago, for my brother's wedding. I missed 2 of my lifting sessions. So I went a full week where I didn't lift weights. I was hosting family. It was crazy busy. Can I just tell you a secret? I did not feel guilty about it. I didn't, because I made a conscious choice. And I said, I never get to see this family. I would rather spend that hour with them than in my basement lifting weights. So I have peace about my decision. That way, Wednesday rolled around. I was ready for my next workout and I just hopped right back on. I just continued. It doesn't have to be this huge thing. It's not failure. We have to stop calling it failure when when we're human for a few days. That's just part of it. Success is that you keep getting back on that wagon. So I feel like we just need to reframe, the way that we speak about, instead of, oh, I fell off the wagon because my family was in town for a week. No, I chose not to exercise while my family was in town because I was prioritizing them. And that's okay.
Yeah. I feel like there is so much judgment on both sides of that, of say family is in town and you skip your workouts. We could so easily just plan, like, I'm going to enjoy family time and that's okay. But if we don't think of that in advance, there's judgment on ourselves of like, oh, I skipped my workout, or I missed it, or I won't get to it. And then like you kind of said too, there's judgment on the other side of like, oh, I fell off. But you can't feel like judgment and guilt and inspired at the same time. And when you said like, just forgive yourself and get back on track, I felt inspired of like, all right, back on the bandwagon, like, here we go. And like, you can't feel both at the same time. So you're right. It is a choice of like, of how you want to experience the working out or lack of working out and then restarting again.
Yeah. And I think what's important to note there is that I have different priorities than you do, maybe, or than other people do. But what was important about that kind of thought process was that I was living out my values and my priorities, which in that moment was, I value this family time over that workout. And so I have peace about it. That's okay if those aren't your values, but what's important to you is that you've been intentional and you've sat down and thought about, like, I have a list in my phone of my values and priorities by number. So that when I have a tough decision, and this was all therapy work, when I have a tough decision, I can open up that list and say, well, I value family over that. So I'm choosing that and I have peace about it. Boom, move on. No guilt, because guilt is not a motivator. I'm sorry for this little soapbox, but in our country and in our world today, we think that guilt is a good enough motivator, and it's not. It is not. What's going to keep you showing up long term, even when you, quote, fall off the wagon, because you will, because you're human. And sometimes other things take priority. Sometimes your kids are sick and they need you. Sometimes you have family in town. Sometimes you go on vacation and you want to actually just relax and enjoy it. That's not falling off the wagon. That's being human. But your success lies in your ability to then change gears and say, hey, I had that. That was great. That was awesome. And now I'm coming back.
I love that. It's such an optimistic outlook. And truly, it like gets me excited to jump back in.
Yeah, because it's such a better feeling. Like, if you're feeling gross, like if you're, I'm beating myself up because I skipped 2 workouts. That's just not a good way to feel. And you want to go into, you want to have positive associations with whatever habit it is that you're trying to set. So let's say you're trying to exercise 3 times a week for 20 minutes, which I think is such a good, beautiful little place to start. Love it. Big fan. You should do everything in your power to make those 20 minutes a positive experience for you. And that includes the way you think about it. I don't have to do a workout. I am choosing to do a workout because XYZ. I have a list in my phone that tells me exactly why.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a better approach. It's more enjoyable. It's more positive. You feel more empowered. You don't feel like you're a failure because you've reframed it. That's not failure. That's being human.
Mm-hmm. That is
Right?
so good. And there's always something, like I
Mhm.
have some clients reach out to me and they say, oh, I'm doing air quotes now too, fell off the bandwagon. I hate that because it's like you said, it's just like, but you got to enjoy XYZ instead. And I
Yeah.
feel like there's always something, holiday season or not.
Yeah.
And I love that approach of just choosing positivity and releasing that guilt, especially. And the notes
Yeah.
app on your phone. You mentioned so many lists and I love it all.
I think for, I'm an Enneagram 9. For those, if you're out there and you're an Enneagram nerd, it is helpful for me because sometimes in my own mind, I forget, I'm like, what do I want? I don't know. Like, because I don't think about those things. But when I have
Mhm.
taken the time to sit down and make a list of what's important to me and in what order,
Yeah.
then it does help me to have peace about, the decisions that I make. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, there is always something. Like there are days where I'm like, well, I'm on the fence. I could do my workout, but my kids were kind of mildly sick last week. So I was like, should I skip it because like they're on the couch with a sniffly nose? And I could have, and that would have been okay. If I'd
Mhm.
cuddled my kids, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
If I go lift weights, that's a good thing. Like
Mhm.
find the good in what it is that you're doing, and it will just help you so much more like to get back to whatever habit it is you're trying to set. Focus on
Mhm.
the good of what you're doing. That's all we can do. We can only show up the way that we can show up.
I love that. That's so peaceful too, which funnily enough is what I almost wish I didn't say that, but
Right. Oh,
it's what
my
we
9
want,
is
isn't it?
showing.
Yeah, I know. Kelsey, you are just amazing. And I just want to tell everyone again your Instagram handle because I've
Mhm.
gotten so much like light from you, but also help from all of your posts. So you guys, it's at Healthy Nine Club. So go follow her if you don't already. She is a wealth of knowledge and
We
she's
have
coming out
fun.
with
We
a
have fun.
course too. So
Yeah, yeah. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time, and it's going to be very much this vibe of giving ourselves grace, giving ourselves the same kindness and respect that we give to other people, right?
thank you so much, Kelsey. I appreciate
Thanks for having me again.
it. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's journal entry. I love connecting with my listeners, so make sure you screenshot this episode and tag me on Instagram at samantha.s.says so I know you're listening. And don't forget to grab your free training and journal prompts at www.samanthapenkoff.com/podcast.